On March 26, 2024, the Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed after being struck by a cargo ship around 1:30 in the morning. There were roughly 2 minutes between the Mayday call to authorities and the bridge's total collapse. We lost 6 construction workers that day, all of whom were described as humble, hardworking men, all of whom left behind spouses and children.
We're unpacking a heated exchange from a recent congressional hearing that has folks in Maryland and, frankly, across the country asking some tough questions about fairness in federal disaster aid. Imagine this: a rural community that voted overwhelmingly for President Trump gets slammed by historic floods, only to be denied federal help not once but twice by his administration. And in the same state, funding for a major bridge rebuild, locked in under President Biden, is now under threat. Is disaster relief becoming a political football? Stick around as we break it down, and if you're new here or appreciate this kind of no-nonsense reporting, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss our next deep dive.
I'll recognize Mr. Olszewski from the great state of Maryland for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you, Ranking Member Velasquez, and you, Mr. Stallings. I appreciate your time and testimony today. On March 26, 2024, the Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed after being struck by a cargo ship around 1:30 in the morning. There were roughly 2 minutes between the Mayday call to authorities and the bridge's total collapse. We lost 6 construction workers that day, all of whom were described as humble, hardworking men, all of whom left behind spouses and children. At the time of the collapse, I was Baltimore County executive, and with community partners and government leaders, we united quickly to deliver help and healing in this incredible time of need. One of those partners was former President Biden, who addressed the nation within hours of the tragedy. As the emergency response was rapidly unfolding, President Biden announced that he had directed his team to move heaven and earth to reopen the Port of Baltimore and rebuild the bridge as quickly as possible. He informed Congress of this intention for the federal government to cover the full cost of reconstruction. Just days later, we welcomed SBA Administrator Guzman for a roundtable with Baltimore small businesses. There was never a moment that Marylanders felt left behind by the president or the administration. Unfortunately, we've had a different experience in Maryland under this administration, who has not only directly threatened to cancel funding for the Key Bridge, funding that is law, but has also abandoned our state in the wake of other disasters. In May of this year, Allegheny and Garrett counties in Maryland suffered catastrophic flooding. 200 elementary school students and teachers were evacuated from their classrooms by boat, with water levels reaching the heights of over 12 feet. Despite easily clearing the federal threshold for assistance, FEMA rejected Maryland's $15.8 million disaster relief request without any detailed justification. With support of the congressional delegation from Maryland and Governor Moore, we sought an appeal to that decision, which was again recently denied. In the wake of all that, FEMA's denials have hurt working Marylanders and have weakened their trust in government. I do, however, want to thank you, Mr. Stallings, you and your partners at the SBA for being present and offering small business loans and nonprofits economic injury disaster loans. These loans can help provide support for businesses and the need for working capital caused by disaster, even if many of the small businesses did not suffer any physical damage. So I do want to thank and acknowledge you, but I want to say that that is in sharp contrast to our experience with FEMA, and sadly, not a word from President Trump, who the hardworking people of Allegheny County supported for the White House by a margin of 40 points. One resident told the New York Times they thought President Trump would, quote, take care of the little person. So I'm just worried that the statements by inaction in other agencies, I know you're not responsible for FEMA, but I worry about the connection between FEMA and small business and the message it's sending to American and Maryland communities that we cannot rely consistently on federal support when disaster strikes. In moments of our greatest need, I worry that Marylanders are being punished for living in a Democratic-led state. I hope that's not the case, but the actions are concerning. 2 questions for you today. First, Mr. Stallings, is the Congressional Research Service has concluded that cutting FEMA aid will grow the demand for disaster loans, since SBA will need to step into that gap and address unmet needs. What level of concern do you have about the added strain on the disaster loan program and the impact that could have on your program's budget?
I would say SBA is well positioned to handle any additional assignments that the President chooses he wants SBA to handle. Administrator Loeffler has given us resources and capabilities. We have great surge hiring potential. We have a great reserve pool of individuals that we regularly inquire about their readiness and their state of ready. We're doing a lot of training. We're developing our team. We're expending resource allocations on new technologies and ways to get out into more rural parts of our country, as well as work in those urban environments. So I think SBA is well positioned, and we're very proud of the program we operate.
I hope that's the case, and let us know if you ever feel that won't be. And then I also know that in the case of Western Maryland, a lot of folks ended up having to go through Tri-County Council and credit unions that were offering 0% options. I wanted to just ask about interest rates quickly, if I can. The interest rates on SBA disaster loans, as I understand it, is based on an SBA determination on whether or not the applicant can access credit elsewhere. Can you explain the process the SBA uses to make that determination for each borrower briefly?
So we have a kind of a set standard. It's credit profile, credit worthiness. Our program is designed for those who really can't find help themselves. But also remind everybody that we also have to take care of the banks, the local banks and community banks. So we can't undermine them by coming in and giving everybody a rate that maybe that would undermine their business. I often say everybody loves free water except the person that sells water for a living. We have to take care of all parts of the community as we respond.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate your presence in Maryland. I hope that the rest of the administration follows your lead, and that we get back to serving and meeting the needs of all that. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Let's set the scene. This all unfolded during a House Small Business Committee hearing on December 16, 2025, titled American Resilience, Examining the SBA Disaster Assistance Program. The spotlight was on how the Small Business Administration handles loans for businesses hit by disasters. But things got personal when Representative John Olszewski, a Democrat from Maryland's 2nd District, took the floor. You might know him as Johnny O, the former Baltimore County executive who was on the front lines during one of the state's biggest tragedies. He was questioning Chris Stallings, the SBA's Associate Administrator for Disaster Recovery and Resilience, and what followed was a masterclass in highlighting what many see as inconsistencies in how Washington responds to crises. Olszewski started by painting a vivid picture of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore on March 26, 2024. A massive cargo ship rammed into it around 1:30 in the morning, and in just about 2 minutes after the Mayday call, the whole structure came down. 6 construction workers, all humble, hard-working men with families, lost their lives. Biden even pledged that the federal government would cover the full cost, a promise he followed through on by notifying Congress and getting it enshrined in law. Just days later, SBA Administrator Isabel Guzman showed up for a roundtable with affected small businesses. Marylanders, Olszewski said, never felt abandoned under that administration. But fast forward to today under President Trump and the story flips. Olszewski didn't mince words. The current White House has threatened to cancel that key bridge funding, even though it's already law, and has left Maryland hanging after other disasters. Take the catastrophic flooding in Allegheny and Garrett counties back in May 2025. We're talking water levels over 12 feet high, forcing the evacuation of 200 elementary school students and teachers by boat. The damage was immense, easily surpassing the federal thresholds for aid, with initial estimates at $15.8 million and later validated at over $33 million. Yet FEMA rejected Maryland's request outright, without much explanation. To really understand this, let's go deeper than the testimony and explore what viewers might not know about how federal disaster aid works. It's not just about showing up with checks. There's a whole process governed by the Stafford Act. For a major disaster declaration, states must prove damages exceed what they can handle alone, based on per capita thresholds, about $1.75 per person statewide or $4.50 per capita in affected counties. Maryland's floods cleared that bar easily, with damages in the millions across rural areas where resources are already stretched thin. Stallings explained the process. It's based on a credit profile and credit worthiness check. The goal is to help those who truly can't get financing elsewhere while not undercutting local banks. He used a folksy analogy. Everybody loves free water except the person who sells it for a living. It's a balancing act, protecting community lenders who are vital to recovery. Ozaleski appreciated the SBA's presence, but hoped the rest of the administration would follow suit, serving all Americans regardless of politics. Humanizing this further, think about those 6 bridge workers, immigrants from Latin America doing pothole repairs in the dead of night. Their families are still grieving, and the bridge rebuild, now estimated at over $1.9 billion, is crucial for the port that employs thousands. Threatening that funding, as Trump has mused about cutting costs or reviewing contracts, could delay recovery and jobs. As we wrap this up, remember, stories like this remind us that government works best when it's about people, not parties. If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, or if you want more on how Washington really operates, subscribe now and join the conversation in the comments. What do you think about politicizing disaster aid? Drop your thoughts below. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and thanks for watching.